Now, if you live in Florida, you know that the Bahamas it's nothing but a skip and a hop away from Florida. But did you know that Bahamian immigrants basically built a lot of the towns in South Florida? And they even started a few of their own. But don't worry. No, don't do that. Because I did some digging. Let's get into it. Now, first off, I gotta say something, okay? This is the Bahamas, okay? All of this. I'm gonna be real with you. I just found out it was this many, islands in the Bahamas. I gotta do better. You learn something new every day. Now, back in the 17th and 18th century, all right, a lot of the fishermen from the Bahamas would go over to Florida, the Keys as well, and they would go fishing over there. There's specific things that they were looking for when they got to Florida. Now, they were really big on like sea turtles and squid and different kind of fish that you could get, right there on the, shore of Florida. But what they would do is they would, hang out there for days, weeks even sometimes, just stacking up on fish. And when they were done, they would come back to the islands. But in the late 1800s, okay, I believe they say around like 1880, 1890, things for the Bahamas start going like bad, like really bad, like straight down south. They couldn't find food, a whole bunch of other stuff going on. All right, so a lot of, Bahamians, they kind of just, migrated over to the areas they was fishing in, South Florida, and kind of like settled. Now, when they got here in the late 1800s, there was nothing here, okay? Miami didn't get really, established until like 1896. So they were settled here already. They grew crops, they had their fishing holes, especially out in Biscayne Bay. And basically, this was their land. Now, cool story, okay? And I'm just sliding this in here because y'all need to know this part of the history. Before they even came here, remember back when I said, 17th and 18th century, they would come here and fish, but they would bump into a lot of runaway slaves in the Biscayne Bay area. And instead of like, hey man, get away from me, they actually said, hey, y'all want to come with us? Y'all could just, y'all can fish, take some fish, and y'all can get on the boat with us and go back to the Bahamas if you want to. So a lot of the descendants from the runaway slaves, they ended up coming back to Florida and settling back in Florida. Now, seeing that they're gonna be here for a while, they're settling, so they start building these, little small homes. And this is where the term shotgun house comes from. And it's a pretty easy, reason why they call it a shotgun house. Now, there are a few stories, all right, of why they call this a shotgun house, but it's only one that really fits, all right? So basically, you can stand on the porch, all right, point a shotgun through the front door, fire it, and the pellets will go straight out the back door without hitting nothing. Pretty simple. That's why they call this a shotgun house. Now, around the turn of the century, 1900s, the presence of Bahamians is really, really strong. And not just in South Florida. I'm talking about all throughout Florida. But when Miami becomes, established, they had 383 people to vote on it, all right? And out of the 383, 162 of them were black people. And the first person to sign this paperwork, right, was a black dude, okay? His name was Silas Austin. Now, Silas is supposed to be in this picture, okay? They color graded this thing. It's black and white. But I don't know where he is, but we're going to have a little fun with this for a second. I'm going to be real with you, okay? That's Silas Austin. He looked like the type of person that'll, rush to the front, hurry up and sign this thing, okay? Let's get this thing done. We rolling with this dude right here. That's Silas. Now, like I said, a lot of the immigrants from the Bahamas, all right, they, basically were building up, South Florida when things started, turning around that turn of the century because they would do all the work. When Flagler brought the railroads in, majority of the people working on the railroads and developing parts of Miami, they were all Bahamian. Some black, but mostly they was from the islands. And like I said, they just didn't settle, okay, in the Miami area. They were in the Keys. They were in like the Fort Lauderdale area, the Pompano area, Riviera Beach. All of these towns, Kissimmee, all of these towns had a really, really strong Bahamian presence around the turn of the century. And they were doing a lot of the work. But there's more to this story. Y'all hang in there with me. Now, we have to backtrack just a little, okay? We got to go back to the 1600s, all right? Now, immigrants from Britain came down, to the Bahamas, and they settled on, one of these islands right on the coast, and they, created their own little, environment. And the thing about it is that they stayed here for a long time. Matter of fact, generations and generations. And remember what I said, okay? In the late 1800s, things for the Bahamas got really bad. So, just like the locals of the Bahamas, when they dipped to Florida, the British did too. They came over to Florida as well, but there was something about what they brought with them that kind of changed the game a little bit, for Florida. Now, when they got here, okay, people didn't really believe that they was Bahamian because these are the descendants of the actual immigrants from Britain. They Bahamian, but people wasn't going for it. No, so they kind of gave them their own name, okay? Call them the Conch people. I think that's a little rude. Now, when they got to Florida, all right, they went to the Keys and, like the Fort Lauderdale area, Treasure Coast, around there, Fort Pierce and all of that. But they also hit the other side of the state, in the Tarpon Springs area, because there was something about what they were doing was a little bit different, okay? Just a little bit different. Now, at this time, everybody could fish. People knew how to fish, and they had different strategies of fishing. But it was something about, the Bahamians, when they came over to Florida, is they brought a little bit more knowledge of fishing because they were a little bit more experienced. So they had bigger boats. They had different utensils, nets, different kind of hooked items that they would bring. And the people in the area that weren't, immigrants, they started picking up on this. And they started doing this as well. So, just like the, black Bahamians, all right, they kind of developed, their own little area. But at this time, nobody took over their area. Like, Julia Tuttle didn't come into this area and take it over like they did in Miami. So, they settled in the Riviera Beach area. But, at this time, like I said, they call them the Conch people, all right? So, they ended up naming the town Conchtown, USA. They could have picked a better name than that. Now, when they were building, like their, settlement or their little neighborhood, they would build all these little small houses. They were called fisher houses. And when other people were coming in from the Bahamas or going back and forth, they would have somewhere to stay. Or if they were, people coming in looking for work, this is where the people would stay while they were working. Now, look, I'm running out of time on this video, okay? There's a lot that I'm leaving out when it comes down to the Bahamas and Florida, all right? So if you feel like I left out something, put it in the comments, okay? Maybe I'll do another one in the near future. I don't know. But the more you know. Peace.